Hey, greetings. Today is episode 19 of Lines on a Page. I am your host, who is apparently not haunted by a ghost currently. Um, Thomas Price. Almost forgot what my name was after making that really terrible joke. Anyways, this is episode 19. We are going to be drawing Mojo, one of the most infamous bad guys from the 80s era of X-Men and pure nightmare fuel. If you've never seen a picture of it, you're about to right now. But first and foremost, please remember to like and subscribe, and please like and follow through linktree.com/slash tpriceartworks, and that is where you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Mastodon, Hive, and Tumblr. So yeah, it is going to be a really interesting show simply because I've personally never drawn Mojo before. I've drawn a good deal of X characters, uh, ranging from uh, mainly from the 80s and 90s. Very few newer X characters that I've drawn, and definitely none of the more classic ones. In my classic, there was one character and I've totally forgotten who it was that I was thinking of. But anyways, yeah, Mojo. So if any of you guys have never read the Art Adams era of X-Men, where apparently in this whole plot line, you've got Mojo, who is this very maniacal, narcissistic piece of garbage, basically, who ends up owning this entire pocket dimension area called Mojo World. And so apparently it's kind of like if you guys never watched the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie Running Man, it kind of gives you an idea of what he likes to do. He likes to see people suffer to bring up the ratings. And so his best idea is to basically kidnap the X-Men. And I believe this is the pre-Outback era group of X-Men, and basically turns them all into children. And lo and behold, what he thinks is the upper hand turns out everything works against them, and hijinks ensue, so on and so forth. It is a really odd storyline, but it is interesting because it actually introduces you to a couple of characters outside of Mojo. But it does introduce you to Longshot and introduces you to Spiral and also introduces, I think, Shatterstar. Uh, but part of me also believes that Shatterstar doesn't appear until later in the 80s during the X Force era. Uh, if someone knows, please correct me. It looks like we got a couple of comments. And Tots coming in for the win.
Hey, you guys.
Yeah, he's a really weird character. Just some of the recent artwork of him is just nightmare fuel. And the problem is that I've actually got a couple of tabs open for reference, so I can actually draw this guy because it's my first time ever drawing him. And yeah, some of the artwork, both official and fan art, is definitely nightmare fuel. All the mullet guys. Well, Spiral doesn't have a mullet, and as far as I know, she doesn't identify as a guy. So, but she does have six arms, though. Um, but yeah, this one's going to be really interesting. So we're going to be doing a couple of different things as far as just putting this together. One of them is drawing a super exaggerated character as far as just the body type, the face. Nothing about it is normal by any scope of the word. And the other thing is that we're also going to be dealing with drawing very jaundiced looking skin. So we're going to be using a lot of yellows. And we're also going to be getting into a little bit of the biomechanical kind of stuff because there's a lot of cabling and a lot of weird cybernetic parts and stuff like that. So it's definitely going to be interesting for sure. Yeah, Shatterstar and Longshot are both the Mullen guys for sure. Which I'm actually kind of surprised because I would have expected, uh, if not Havoc, then definitely Cyclops having a mullet. I mean, just for some reason, um, I would have expected one of those two guys to be having one. But that's just me. But yeah, we are going to embiggen, which is definitely I'm pretty sure that's not a word at all. Josh has been making me say that a lot. Josh Hall, the owner at Haven Comics. But yeah. So we're going to get down to the nitty gritty. And these references that I pulled up, like some of them are covers and some of them was like uh, basically ArtStation uh, digitally painted stuff of like if he was actually in the MCU, this is what he could look like. And yeah, it's so bad. Um, man. All right. So let's get down to the ugly. Art Adams is actually a really interesting artist. If you guys never looked at any of his stuff, I do highly recommend. Um, but Adams has this really, well, first off, the guy's detail or eye for detail, um, which is creating just really interesting textures and cross hatching and stuff like that. It's next level stuff. He was definitely way ahead of his time in the 80s when he was brought on board with Marvel. And it wasn't just the X-Men that Art Adams did. He also did Thor for a time as well, which he also did the crossover Asgardian Wars, which the X-Men actually do go to Midgard, and Thor and Storm ends up harnessing the power of Mjolnir. Uh, so that was kind of an interesting situation. But yeah, just a lot of craziness and stuff like that that happens in the 80s. Um, so it's definitely interesting with some of the storylines and stuff like that. There were a lot of good things that happened storyline wise with both Marvel and DC in the 80s. There were a lot of re envisionings and some rebooting with a lot of characters. Everyone from like, the core legacy characters all the way down to certain characters that were looked at secondary that ended up becoming more of a primary character later on. So, but yeah, definitely interesting. Marvel has actually released within the last 3 years various art books, and Art Adams actually does have one, as well as Frank Cho, Ed McGuinness. Um, Humberto Ramos is another one, and I forgot who. Chris Bachalo, that's who it is. Um, it's definitely interesting choices. I can understand Adams and Cho and Ramos. McGinnis was a bit of a wild card. Bacho, I can understand because he did the first volume of Generation X. before Terry Dodson stepped in. And but I would have figured that there would have been uh, someone else in it, like Joe Maguire, um, or because what he did with the X-Men during the '90s was again next level. Everyone was trying to, I guess, replicate what the OG Image guys were doing. Then here comes Joe Mad coming in, swinging in all cylinders, and then after he left uh, to do Battle Chasers on Cliffhanger, and that basically left a hole that Marvel was trying super hard to fill in, and so there was like a bunch of other people just trying to basically copy and imitate his art style, and which, like Arthur Adams, Joe was very much influenced by animated manga, and you can tell in his work. um, so it was definitely interesting to see um, this interesting stylistic change that was happening, because like everyone was trying to uh, get the next, Sylvester Lee, McFarlane after they left. And so they basically hired a bunch of people to imitate their style to fill in the gaps. Which, I mean, there were a couple of people whose style definitely was not like that, but they had been doing stuff with Marvel for a time. So both Andy and Adam Kubert um, were doing stuff for Marvel, which I highly recommend. If you haven't read Age of Apocalypse, if you haven't read Kazar, uh, the Mark Wade '90s story of Kazar, um, yeah, you'll probably be seeing uh, Andy Kubert, what I feel like was his prime. Let's see here. So similar to extreme facial reactions. Uh, Mojo has basically this clown-like grin of sorts, to the point that you probably could mistake him for a futuristic Cenobite if you really want to think of him that way. So I'm just trying to, because his entire anatomy is just super duper exaggerated. So I'm trying to exaggerate proportions as much as possible before I start adding in all of the technical bits. It's just easier to get all of the more organic parts in first. And Okay, so he does have like a triple, quadruple chin thing going on underneath here. Okay, some neck rolls. So the funny part is that even though the entire Mojo World X Baby thing was, definitely a deviation from a lot of the X stories of the time. It was also kind of a social commentary of just how America was at the time with just doing everything for the ratings. How much shock factor can we inject into everyday television, all that sort of stuff. So there was a little bit of a social commentary thing, um, you know, which it's absolutely hilarious. The more and more that the years pass on and people are just like, oh, the comics weren't doing this and that. You're just creating an agenda. No, like chances are you didn't really read them. You just liked the art or you had picked up a random filler issue. You didn't actually study the stories. Um, because, prime example, even though it wasn't comics, it was actually Edgar Allan Poe. And I've read and uh, had to write reports and stuff like that on the Telltale Heart. And it wasn't until um, uh, college, and it was my second to last semester of college, and um, ended up finding out that, you know, for the longest, I always thought that the whole sticking the head through the threshold situation was just really strange behavior, which I just attributed to the manic, um, just uh, manic psychotic behavior, and come to find out that there was actually a lot more subtext to that than how I was actually interpreting and reading it. And the part where just, you kind of find out and you have that shocking realization. It's just like, oh God, I've been reading this all wrong for all this time. Um, so like to thank Professor Congo for shining the light on that one. Do not insult Semites like that. I'm only stating the whole, like, eyelids and mouth and stuff getting pulled back by, surgical equipment and stuff like that. That's the only, you know, thing that I'm equating it to. Like I said, it's nightmare fuel, especially for little kids. Um, but quickly break away from this. Wanted to show you guys, if you haven't been following me or watching me, on social media. So like I'm doing this thing called Femme Fatale February. So far we're on day 5, and here is Star Sapphire. If you haven't been noticing, so uh, Nicholas Guyette. Hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. This will be mailing out to you soon, and so I think, yeah, that and this. And make sure I'm not missing anything else. Oh, wondering if I should like give him like a tub of popcorn or something. So I feel like that just seems very much in line to, you know what, I'm going to do it. It definitely feels very much in line with the character. So, oh, have you guys seen that video where it's this kid working in a movie theater and he's like spinning the popcorn bucket while putting in the butter? I mean, it's just total, the whole hand-eye coordination is just on Globetrotters level. It's absolutely nuts. Um, but I definitely feel like that kid needs a raise. All right. And gotta mount popcorn and just have his hand right here. Actually, extend it out just a bit more. Right. All right. So now that we've got basically the idea of the body, it looks like you in the bathtub. Cheers. All right. So now that we've got both the mental image of Alan sitting in the bathtub, thanks for that, Alan. But yeah, now that we've got the idea of how the proportions of this super duper exaggerated, obese, jaundiced, malnutritioned looking booger. Um, Start doing some finer details. And the other weird thing is that everyone, if I remember correctly, it's everyone except for Spiral has like three fingers and a thumb. Everyone else, well, sorry, everyone that's on Mojo World has three fingers and a thumb, but Spiral is the only one with a full set of hands, I think. Um, but at the same time, I also feel like it's whoever's doing the art of or whoever happens to be drawing Spiral at the time usually gives her like a normal set of hands, even though she has like six arms. Um, Added on, I call it good. I mean, he's practically on a metal donut for life. Um, so I was actually asked a question about hands, as far as just drawing them, I should say, uh, from a kid who was in the store yesterday. Keep forgetting her name because her and her dad come in on the regular on Saturdays. Um, but she likes to draw too, and she noticed when I was doing the thumbnail sketches for Star Sapphire, she was asking about, you know, how I draw the hand because, I was using, you know, an interesting perspective uh, because of just how the hand was just positioned and stuff like that. Um, this was something that actually took me some time to get right. Actually made that mark. Um, but I realized that you don't uh, have to draw every single finger, depending on how the hand is positioned. And I know so many artists will just, cop out and they have to draw characters, with this or, uh, you know, hand is out or whatever, and they have to draw every single finger, or they're just drawing characters in fists. You know, I guess it's okay. You can do it all you want, but that gets really boring really quick. And there's nothing that gives the character from what you're drawing any sort of personality whatsoever. Um, and it definitely comes off as a missed opportunity. And the best part about drawing teeth, especially with a crazed character like this, is that you don't have to put in every single line to get the idea that you know this person happens to have a normal set of teeth, gum line and all that sort of stuff. It's just so much easier to uh, put in almost the bare minimum to give off the maximum effect, uh, which is just a super roundabout way of saying less is more. So what I like to do is whenever I'm dealing with characters with really detailed grins, if you can see this, which I know I'm using a light pencil, but um, I make sure that the some of the back teeth have a line right here, but then not much of that going forward. And some of that is because of the light source coming in, which I was actually talking about that in the last stream. If you weren't there drawing me, sorry, if you weren't there watching me drawing Baroness last Sunday, you can actually stop watching this video. You can go back and watch that one because I actually do talk about light sources. Uh, Generally, the I really hate saying this term, but the easiest hack you can possibly do. Now, keep in mind, I say hack. I do not say pro tip. The reason I don't say pro tip is because I'm not a professional. Therefore, there's zero reason for me to be giving off a pro tip. Um, there are too many people who give off pro tips and they're not professionals in the industry whatsoever, and that's where mistakes are made. So the hack is basically if you've got a character and they're facing one side of the page, then it makes common sense for you to be creating the light source on that side of the page. So because Mojo is faced this way, then I'm going to have the light source coming in this way. Got some hillbilly teefuses. Weirdly enough, even though yeah, from what I've seen, he's got a really good dental plan because he's got, as far as I can tell, he's got all of his teeth. Now, he may not have had braces, but uh, seems to be doing pretty well with having all of his teeth. So with all of these, different folds of fat and whatever else that's coursing through this guy's body, um, it's going to be different than folds in clothing. Uh, so everything is much more spherical. It sits differently. Um, you can equate it to how self-serve ice cream comes out of a machine. It's very bulbous and it sits on top of each other. Or, you can think of the poop emoji. That works too. So yeah. I know there's been a lot of chatter about the new DC stuff. Um, you know, a lot of questions for and speculation over a 6 minute, really quick drop of a video in terms of James Gunn's plans for the future of DC movies and just film stuff in general. I do like the fact that uh, anything else that's coming prior or is connected to previous stuff is considered as Elseworlds. It's not exactly canon, but it's not exactly not canon. Uh, but it is canon to its own story. Uh, I do hate that speculator market is just going berserk and just buying specific dollar comics and raising them about 5 times its asking price. Uh, but the one thing that I will say is that Gunn actually reads his material. He knows characters. Uh, from like the most known to the most obscure. The guy knows his material, and even more so, he actually goes further than that, and actually, giving specific, writers and artists credits, which Feige has not done whatsoever. So, I definitely commend Gunn for doing that because that means that people who have never read certain stories and stuff like that, they're able to find, uh, you know, the Grant the Grant Morrison run and stuff. I wonder if WB will use the DC Elseworlds logo in the opening credits. That's really a good question. I would hope so, because I mean, if he's stating that this is going to be Elseworlds, I would definitely hope that they're going to be using the Elseworlds logo, which personally, I miss Elseworlds. They had a lot of great one-shot stories. Um, a lot of really interesting ideas with legacy characters in non-legacy settings. Um, which I mean, for some reason, I'm a bit surprised that when they did the animated Long Halloween, uh, that they did not use the old swirl. Sorry, not the Long Halloween. Um, Gotham and Gaslight. Um, I'm really surprised that they did not include that before starting uh, the actual movie. So, which going back to the Long Halloween, total rant. As much as I, enjoyed it, there were some deviations from the source material. Uh, so, I mean, for the most part, it was about 80% accurate um, to the actual story, but they added in a couple of things that just should not have belonged. The first one being cell phones. They could have done without them. Um, and the whole Chinese gangster thing was not part of the actual storyline. So I don't know why they brought that in. And I think the biggest fault is the fact of they did not use Tim Sale's actual character designs during the Long Halloween. They used them in the opening credits, but that's it. And I feel like that was kind of a disservice. Um, so because Sale's art style is very unique, it's very different, and I definitely enjoy it. Uh, but that was definitely a giant oversight for Warner Brothers to not be using his stuff. But that is just one person low on the totem pole. Um, I am actually super intrigued by the Green Lantern show. Um, Definitely intrigued by Paradise Lost because if, from what Gunn was talking about, chapter one is going to be called Gods and Monsters, and since we're dealing with the pantheon of gods and the beginnings of uh, Themyscira and or Paradise Island, depending on what you're going to call it, it's practically the same thing. Um, I know someone out there is just going to be like pulling out their hair and be like, "No, it's not." Um, it's definitely going to be interesting to see that show. Definitely super hyped about the Authority. The fact that we're actually getting something from the Wildstorm era onto the silver screen. Um, it's definitely going to be an interesting thing for sure. Um, and as much as I was happy originally for a sequel for Shazam, the trailer was a bit disappointing. Um, and I think um, Nick and Dustin over at Two Bros Comics said it perfectly. Um, it definitely felt like, uh, that trailer. It just felt like, watching Black Widow. I mean, you kind of know. Um, there's no high stakes, kind of situation. There's no big ultimate underlying thing, which I totally get because it is technically the end of the previous stuff, and it's the beginning of another, which honestly, with the Flash film, chances are I'm not going to watch it, regardless of how much I like Michael Keaton uh, and his involvement in it. Uh, Ezra Miller, no offense to him as a human being, but he did not personify Barry Allen. Grant Gustin, on the other hand, who did the Flash TV series, that felt like Barry Allen. So uh, they honestly should have just recasted. Uh, still keep the whatever shots that they do have without involving him and just put in Grant Gustin, and that would have been perfectly fine. Finally watched Black Adam, and it's kind of said we will more likely never see these characters on the big screen again. Um, so definitely enjoyed Black Adam, and I think the high point for Black Adam was really um, seeing a version of Doctor Fate and Hawkman. Um, uh, I wasn't going to say, like a version of both of those characters on the silver screen. We did see Atom Smasher 2 and Cyclone. So, but at the same time, I'm kind of liking this whole reset, even if it's going to take a while. Because I definitely know for a fact that there were a lot of just red tape. I know that there had to have been a crap ton of red tape involved in terms of where Gunn was currently, the plate that Gunn was currently given and what he can do with specific characters, and then having to figure out how am I going to make the plan work for 10 years. And this is going to be chapter one. So for him to be able to use specific characters again and stuff, it's definitely going to be interesting. But the only reason that certain characters from the JSA were involved was because of the situation with regarding Stargirl, and at the same time, you also couldn't use certain characters because of the whole Flash Arrowverse stuff with CW, and of course the Titan show as well. So, and that was the one thing that I've heard a lot of bickering about in terms of like, well, why didn't they use Dick Grayson or Jason Todd or Tim Drake? And it's because of the Titan show. Just HBO Max just had those characters just in a vice grip, basically. So for Gunn to basically just state that, yeah, we're going to be doing the Grant Morrison run of Brave and the Bold, and we're going to be using the whole interplay relationship between Damian and Batman. I'm kind of glad, simply because like the Matt Reeves Batman, we're not having the same old rehash origin story stuff that's been done before several times. So that's something that I'm kind of glad that we're not getting regarding with Batman, and hopefully with Superman Legacy. We're not getting Smallville. We're not getting another Man of Steel. We're not getting the same old origin story stuff. Which I do think that his choice of using Frank Quitely's work of Superman was a bad idea. I mean, the story's great. I mean, the story for All Star Superman is a good story, and also it's like up in it's not up in the way. It's up in the sky. I think is what it was called. Um, that one is also a really good Superman story that has come out within the last 5 years, I think. Um, so yeah, those are definitely the things that I definitely like. But let me changing subject real quick. I'm going to look at references again with all this cabling and some nonsense got going on, which I can't ignore because it's part of the character. Okay, so it looks like he always has a bigger cabling slot here and here. Um, which I think, yeah, I'm gonna have to angle this part up. Give him some tiny ears just to make it even more unsettling. And looks like we've got stuff right here and cable that's right here. Dr. Fate and Hawkman definitely stole the movie. Also, kind of like Adam Smasher. Yep. Both of those guys, which I mean, Pierce Brosnan is always going to steal the show. He's just one of those actors that, yes, he brings so much to the table, even if what you give him is very little. So I think, with the exception of, what was I thinking of? Sorry, I'm thinking about X-Men characters. With the exception of Scarlet Witch, uh, and I think maybe Psylocke. I can't remember. Oh wait, never mind. I did draw Deadpool and I did draw Wolverine. Uh, but yeah, those are really the only X characters that I've drawn last year, and I'm definitely jonesing to draw some more. Actually, no, I take that back. I did draw the 80s X Factor. So, it's basically the OG First Class, Scott Jean, uh, Warren, Bobby, and uh, Hank McCoy. That's who it is. Um, just thinking about a completely different character, which supposedly Beast's character in the current X stuff. Like apparently he's like a war criminal now, which is very bizarre. Um, like I know that he was already in trouble for screwing around with the timelines and bringing back the original X team, which this is during the whole all new, all different era of stuff that came out right around, I think it was like 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. Um, which I actually did enjoy that storyline. I know a lot of people weren't really sure about, heads or tails or whatever. And I think part of that was just because, it was coming off of the whole Adventures versus X-Men storyline, and Scott ends up, well, spoiler alert for those who haven't read it, but Scott ends up killing Professor X. But in Scott's defense, he was under the influence of the Phoenix Force, um, as well as Emma Frost, Magic, Colossus, and who was there was one other person, because there were five of them that were all possessed by the Phoenix Force. I'm forgetting who it is, but I actually did enjoy that storyline. I also enjoyed uh, Nation X, which led into the whole Dark Reign. It was one of a couple different stories that was leading into Dark Reign, um, which is a fantastic storyline. Um, and let's see, and also, see, see, you're called Messiah Conflict. No, it is Second Coming. That's what it's called, and it's when Hope Summers gets introduced and kind of saves the whole mutant race, and Cable's basically, yeah, Cable is just a paradox of a character because you never know if he's going to be good or bad or indifferent. Which there was a recent X Force run where you've got a younger uh, version of Cable, and apparently Death Clock, sorry, uh, Deadlock, I think that's his name, um, is also part of it. And of course, Warpath is in it. I like that character, and of course Domino. But yeah, I'm still trying to figure out why uh, Zombie Cyborg is part of X Force. Because last I checked, uh, I don't think that he was a mutant, but unless something's been changed or retconned regarding that character, then it's news to me. 90s style Shatterstar would be cool. Mullets, New Mutants, Cannonball, Shatterstar, Longshot, or Angel. Hmm. You know, so after the whole Apocalypse taking over Warren, there was a moment where, and this happens somewhere between the mid to late 90s, and Joe Madureira basically does this whole thing where, and this happens actually a couple times in X Force, where Warren is able to shift back and forth between regular Angel to Archangel. Um, it's kind of like the Iron Spider thing where he goes into like instant kill mode or something like that. So I thought that was an interesting twist to the character uh, post Blue Skin Apocalypse takeover. situation. Um, and for a storyline like Age of Apocalypse to existed, it gets a lot of love, but at the same time, I just don't hear a lot of people like really talking about it. Um, I could definitely so. Um, I actually do remember the first time reading uh, that whole storyline of um, the whole situation with the Morlocks uh, and then Warren ends up losing his wings and kind of makes a deal with the devil with Apocalypse. And I remember reading that for the first time and which I'm pretty sure it was the same thing like back then. It was just, very dark. Um, Even though the artwork probably wasn't reflecting um like how dark you could possibly make it, but just the concept alone was actually pretty dark. Um, that was a really cool storyline. Um, because it just kind of gives you an idea as to how big and bad Apocalypse is, which I get that it's possible to create redemption arcs and stuff like that, but I feel like that's something that gets lost with comics. It's that everyone has to have like a specific motive, and uh, and so it's just like, well, it's almost like you can't have a person who's good just because they are, or someone who just happens to be evil because they are. But then at the same time, you've also got the specific sect of people who after watching The Dark Knight for the first time, and they're over here idolizing the Joker. Uh, so yeah, in which I say to them, uh, understand the difference between reality and fantasy, because if you can't, you're screwed. But um, as far as just like the current X stories are concerned, I do think it was a bit of a strange idea to have Apocalypse, I guess, change his ways, because it just, but you still call him that. You don't call him, well, I take that back. There are several characters that do call him by his real name, uh, Ibn Sur, but you just for more times than none, everyone's going to call him exactly how he's been called, which is Apocalypse. And so it's just like, you know, why do you still call him that if, which is a word that means, a great ending of something and, uh, or devastation of something. And so it's just like, that doesn't make any sense. So trying to make the cabling kind of snake in and out, which this is kind of like a really weird fine detail thing. Probably won't see it until I start getting to the actual inking. And so I think we're at a good point where we're going to be starting on the colors. And so I've pulled out a couple of markers that are going to give us that, really thickly jaundiced kind of yellow. And we might build up a little bit of saturation with that, with a more, I guess, deeper shade of yellow. And got a couple different colors as far as cabling and stuff like that. So this part I don't feel like is going to take as long as everything else, hopefully. All right. Sounds better than the blue meanie. Yeah, you are not wrong. Use tip side. So basically just kind of thinking that, on top of the fact that he has this really ugly, sickly, type of, uh, skin color, that I would assume with a guy who spends all this time uh, in a walking robotic wheelchair and he's glued to a TV, I would assume that he would be very pale. So we're going to try to reflect that as much as possible. If we were, painting a miniature, this would be a lot easier because I really the color that I'm thinking that I would have used is kind of a blend between a yellow uh, and a cream. That would have been a color choice that I would have used. Almost kind of like a parchment kind of color. But with these sections that, um, you know, the skin's kind of pulled back and has these really weird layers and stuff. I'm going to be injecting some more pinkish and flesh tones so that it kind of gives off this, you know, very sick and grody uh, kind of bruising and, like I said, any other disgusting words you could possibly think of regarding uh, this character. Which, I mean, I guess warm gray one could work. Um, it's just not light enough. So until I get warm gray zero, I'm going to be doing a bit of a blend of a couple different colors, but still giving off this just really gross looking skin color. Yeah, it's definitely baby boo. Definitely. Yeah, because as you can see, like warm one has a bit of a gray, which I mean, popcorn, when it's got like a little bit of burnt with a couple of kernels, it makes sense. Especially since I'll be putting a more saturated yellow. And right back. An even more saturated yellow, which has a little bit of orange in it, but that's fine. So if Mark Hamill never did the voice of the Joker, um, he definitely would have been a great voice for Mojo. Definitely has that just wild manic gesturing type thing, and Hamill does that perfectly. And the fact that it wasn't until I was in my teens when I found out that Luke Skywalker did the voice of Joker that my mind just. And we're going to give Mojo some dirty fingernails. So we're going to be doing a couple of different colors as far as just the folds of uh, the skin and stuff like that. So the gums and the flesh inside the eye. So we're going to be doing a really weird blend of two different colors. So we're using what's known as natural lipstick. It's a more darker tone. Then we're going to be going back in uh, with this shade of red. And we might inject some uh, pink. I'm going to be using this same kind of shade of pink over these areas right here. Kind of give it a real slightly inflamed. Probably has some acne going on or something. So not too dissimilar from like, doing circles for Kirby Crackle. I kind of got the same idea going on, except instead of, full on uh circles, it's just little semicircles and half circles and things of that nature. All right. And we're going to go back in with our really pale yellow just to blend it all in even more. The big bird of your nightmares. All right. Last but not least, do need to because apparently the character does have really light blue eyes, uh, or irises, I should say. Do that, and one tiny little thing. Going to slightly stain his teeth. So using the lightest warm gray that I have, just make it even more unsettling. All right. Now we get to move on to the fun part, which is all the machinery and cabling and fun things. Uh, so I'm going to be using a couple different shades of gray. Uh, and before someone puts in the comments, no, it's not 50 Shades. This is not that kind of show. And we're going to start off with medium tone. Now, the cool thing is that, depending on what kind of person you are with drawing, tech, really just depends on what kind of technology you want to put on the character. Because with various different iterations over the years, sometimes he has a lot of tech going on. Sometimes it's not a lot. So I guess it just really depends on how you're feeling. And which I'm also going to be putting in some shades of blue just to balance out, I guess, the coldness with all this gray. And I think with some of the cables, we'll probably do them in a couple different colors because, you always need the red cable and the blue cable, or the red wire, blue wire. And I think before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And for the sake of just changing things up, I'm going to inject an orange. And yeah, let's get back to it. And this is the part that takes the longest. And with a few squiggles here and there, you have basically made skin look disgusting. And I've noticed that we have hit the hour 45 mark. So I do want to go ahead and thank everyone that has come out onto the stream, has chatted. Definitely means a lot. And also want to thank those of you who have already paid and called dibs on any of the Femme Fatale stuff that I'm doing this month. Uh, it's, super encouraging. Was not expecting a lot of people to want to get something, and yeah, it was definitely taken aback. So quite quite thankful that that's happened. And just to give some added effect to chair he's in, give it some interesting striations, some weathering. And last but not least, I'll be quickly throwing in a little bit of black. Just pretty interesting depth of shadows. I'm leaving just a bunch of little white gaps. All right, so as I stated before, we're going to be throwing in a little bit of blue, just liven it up just a little bit. And just realized that I almost forgot to ink this. That would have been a little bit strange if I had left that unattended. All right. Last but not least, finding any sections of graphite that I can erase. All right. Basically, have the scene completed. I would be completely remiss if I did not put in a quick splash of a background. Mojo World. That's it. Wow, I can't believe I was having a brain fart regarding that. And quick TV screens. All right, we have done it. There it is, Mojo. Took about 2 hours to do it, but we got there. So that's really all that matters. All right. Thank you guys yet again for another long episode of Lines on Page. Hopefully, we'll get back to a much more quicker pace, which I am super duper happy to announce with next week's show, which is going to be an interview with another fellow comic artist and friend, Reed Beeman. So please be sure to come out to that one. It's going to be pretty awesome. A candid interview and just kind of picking his brain and how he approaches panels and does work and throws lines on a page. So before I leave, I'm going to be doing quick housekeeping stuff. Haven Comics is located at 1871 Slaughter Road, Suite F in Madison, Alabama. And please remember to like and subscribe, not just the Haven Comics Facebook page and YouTube page. If you haven't, then you definitely need to. But also, you can also like and subscribe to all the stuff that I'm currently on social media. And you can find me at tpriceartworks on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, Hive, and Mastodon. So a couple different places you can find me, and more likely you can catch me on the weekends at Haven Comics in general. So yeah, super duper glad that we were able to get this done today. And man, that is just nightmare fuel. Anyways, this will be on sale at Haven Comics. So if you want to pick this up or any other artwork or my sketchbook Between Lines released last year, you can find that there as well. Again, thank you so much, and I will see you guys next Sunday.